Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we're going to talk about everyday bonsai care. And specifically, I'm going to cover the basics that I go through every day to keep my trees healthy, happy, and thriving. Now, I love succulents, but these tips will work for most any tree. And many viewers have been asking for this. And I think it'd be a pretty good video, so check it out. And I will do another video, which I'll probably just call Bonsai Basics, which is more general stuff. But this is the stuff that I do every day, as I said, to keep these trees in tip-top shape. My daily inspection is centered around three things: watering, checking for insects, and evaluating for declining health. And particularly if I'm in a hurry, I almost never skip those things, and I'll go through each of them, spending a lot of time on watering because it's one of the most critical things. I find it really helps to have your trees displayed on shelves or somewhere where you can really get a look at them, reach in, pick them up, turn them around, and really have an in-depth inspection of the tree in order to find any of the problems with watering, bugs, or health decline. One of the main things, particularly with succulents, is you're checking for water. Now look at this. You can see this is a robust, shiny leaves. They're plump. This plant does not need watering. It is probably at the optimum conditions, right? And so you never want to water a succulent that is moist or that looks like this because it could lead to root rot. Now this one, look at the leaves. See how they're sort of, just looks tired. They're thin. They're dull. It kind of looks a bit wilty. And so, again, robust. Don't touch me. Don't water me. You might kill me. I'm quite thirsty. I could probably use some water. And so that's basically how I want to inspect for watering. And let's look at a few others. This one probably doesn't need watering. But again, I sort of lift the pot if it's super, super dry. You can do that. This one's growing quite well. This, see some wilting there? Definitely needs some watering. This one, 50-50, probably wouldn't water it. This is very thirsty. And when I do need to water, I'll show you how I use two methods. One is the dunk method, which I'll show you now. And I just get, this is a sort of a dishwashing pan, and I put water in it. And then I just dunk the trees in there. And I'll show you exactly how I do that. Now, I don't do this every time. Probably about every 4 to 6 weeks, I will do a nice dunk because I think it just helps really, really water the tree. And, if it's really, really dry, I also won't hesitate to do this because I think it's just, it really gets the tree full of water and kind of back to looking like it's in optimum health. So this is the tree we looked at that was pretty dry. And I just kind of slowly put it in here. You don't want to dunk it too fast or all the loose stuff on the top will come flying off, which you're going to lose anyhow. And what I'll typically do is put the tree in here. This is kind of ideal if you can get it so the water doesn't quite go over the lip of the pot, but that's tough to do. And this is the same tree I showed you that just recently that did need watering, but this video, I took this section a bit later, so I'm dunking it in here. It's got some shrivelly leaves on there. And I'll just fill up this this container. You can use anything that's deep enough, and I generally will water several trees at once that are ready for it. So I put a bunch in there. Um, I actually have a much larger container that I use once. If somehow the planets align and everything needs a lot of watering, I'll do that, and then I set my timer. I have an Apple Watch here, which, as I've gotten older and can't remember anything, it's fantastic. And I put them in here for quite a while. I'll do half an hour, uh, and then come back, and I'll show you what we do next. But while we're waiting, a key thing with succulents is you do not want to overwater them. That's way, way, way worse than underwatering them, and they're quite different than any other variety of bonsai that I know where you can just willy-nilly water and they'll be fine. They're very hard to overwater. But these, you want to be careful and not overwater them. And by that, I mean watering too often. Here, you can obviously I'm soaking these for half an hour, which is perfectly fine. if they're already dry. So these have been in here for half hour, and then I kind of pull them up like this, and usually just kind of hold it for a second. If you lean it to the side, you'll get a lot of clear draining. And this also helps, if you, because I don't have any fertilizer in this water, but I fertilize these trees often, and most of the time I use a sprayer to water them, which I'll also show you. And this helps, flush the salts out of the bottom of the pot because you don't because I'm watering indoors, I don't really get a good flush like I do outdoors, and I find this helps with that. Um, Helps immensely. But the key, and this is really specific to succulents, is if it's already moist, don't water it. Right? If it looks robust, don't water it. If you pick up the pot and it's really dry, like lightweight, like oh, clearly this thing is quite dry. Even if it looks healthy, it's fine to water it. But these plants really want to dry out at least every 7 days, and if you don't allow them to do that, you can run into problems with root rot, which is very very difficult to overcome. Like these aren't if you catch it early and you just have a little bit, what I find I just let the plant dry out for like 3 weeks and then start watering it again, and oftentimes that's fine. So they're a bit easier to bring back from root rot if you catch it early than a jade like a Crassula ovata I found is just almost impossible to bring back. But these, you can. But again, a daily inspection. You want to catch it early. You want to notice, signs of decline and figure out what the problem is. Maybe pull the tree out of the pot and look at the roots, and maybe trim off the dead stuff, put it in dry bonsai soil, and then let it go for a while. So here, we're reloading. And I'll typically do this, while I'm watching YouTube or reading or something, listen to some music. And I'll put in another batch, reset the clock, and yeah, that's basically my deep watering technique. Which, because I have trees in these really tiny pots, that it's all or inorganic. I mean, there's a little bit of pine bark in there, but honestly, it's really hard to saturate pine bark, so it's not really a great thing for holding water, in my opinion. Um, So, sometimes these trees really benefit um, from a good soak, much like people do. They really, really seem to appreciate it. And what you'll find is when you take them out of here, it takes it about a day, sometimes 2 days, and it's just a dramatic difference in the tree, particularly if it was quite dried out. For example, this is the tree I showed in the beginning that needed water, and you can see now it's plump, it's shiny. You touch the leaves, they've got some thickness to them, and I mean, just look at it, right? It just looks really, really healthy. And this is kind of the goal with these. You want to go from healthy to dried out looking to healthy to dried out looking, and you just complete doing that cycle again and again. And they really respond quite well to it, and I feel like they appreciate that wet dry cycle. Really makes them robust. This one looks like it needs some water. Again, it's kind of flaccid looking. So let's continue our daily inspection. You can see I had my watering can there, and I've got these nice shelves where I can easily look at things, and if I notice any creepy crawlies moving around, I can take action, and I'll tell you about that in the beginning. But I wanted to show you, I felt like I jumped a little bit ahead with the watering. Um, Usually, in the morning, I come down here, get a cup of coffee, and just kind of slowly look at each tree. And, I'll actually, kind of go in here and really give each one a pretty decent inspection, mainly looking, as I said before, does it need watering? Are there anything attacking the tree, or does the tree just look unhealthy? And also, you've got things like cuttings here. I make sure that the roots are submerged, and if there's too much algae in the water, I'll go ahead and change out the water for that. And then, typically I'll pick up a tree, and take a good look at it. I find it really helps to know if it needs water. Just heft it up. I mean, you'll get a sense for each pot and how much it weighs when it's dry versus when it's not dry. And then, just kind of look around the leaves. Like it really helps. Uh, if you've got mealy bugs on here or anything like that, by giving the tree a good look, close look, you're probably going to see them right away because they're bright white. They kind of pop out. Aphids are typically black. Scales I usually get brown scales, so you can see that. But um, yeah, I typically pick up a tree, just check it out real quickly, satisfy myself that it's fine for another 24 hours, and put it back on the shelf. I find it very enjoyable, actually. It's kind of like just taking care of bonsai is honestly the probably the greatest factor that leads to success. Now, another thing I like to do nearly daily, which I'll show you, which is kind of in the category of watering. So you can see this, like it looks like it could use a little pruning, and I'll cover that a bit later too. Like I'll do some daily pruning. Um, you know, Either I usually wait a long time or I just go ahead and do it. But I wanted to show you like this spritzing I use. I do this pretty often. I find the trees really enjoy, and I'm not really watering the tree. I'm just kind of hitting the leaves and maybe a little bit of the surface soil. It kind of increases the humidity around the plant for, maybe 2 hours. And I find they really like it. And sometimes I'll even do it in the evening, more simulating, like fog coming in, or it's usually cooler in the evening, just about anywhere, even in the desert. And I find the trees really appreciate that, particularly succulents. If you have other varieties that are prone to mold or something like that, you may not want to do this. Or my environment here is pretty dry. This is indoors. When they're outside, I generally only spray them when it's really hot. But this is I just do this during the daily inspection, right? I'm kind of taking a look at the trees, and especially some that I've decided not to water. If you're somebody who, and here's my watering thing. I'll show you how I do that. I usually just kind of come in here and spray. For example, on these mame trees. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you're the kind of person that overcares for your trees, I find using a sprayer is great because it doesn't harm them, and you can really feel like you're taking care of them and giving them water. And I find you can spray them 3 times a day, and it doesn't seem to harm jades. So here's another shelf, and again, I can see that definitely looks like it needs some water. Those guys are looking quite tired. That's just kind of a random forest I have. Uh, and I this is how I do most of my watering. The dunk method I showed you is much more periodic, but I'm sort of using this sprayer at least somewhere on a daily basis. And again, you have to check each tree. It's not like other varieties like maples or something where you just hose down the whole bench. It is a bit more work with succulents because you don't want to overwater any one specific tree, so it's a bit more work there. And I find the spraying also works. These are some trees. One I recently repotted, and this one, and then one, I did some heavy wiring on, which the trees sometimes get a little freaked out by. And I find, spraying them, I'm not really watering them till I want to see more activity. But I find spraying them, they really seem to appreciate that on the leaves. So it's something I do. I know not everybody agrees with that with succulents, but I find it to be really helpful. Related to watering, I want to cover fertilizer because I get so many questions on this. And I find, these trees really, Portuguese F really likes, and this is my secret. I fertilize with pasta sauce, this arrabbiata pasta sauce. No, I don't. I don't. I use I just find it a nice container to put my Miracle Grow in, and I have a little spoon in there, and I mix it. I use my 2-gallon sprayer, and I put 1 teaspoon of this in per 2 gallons, and then I fertilize them a lot more when they're outside. But I find works really well, and they really enjoy that. And this is what I use here. It's just a Miracle Grow all-purpose plant food. It's completely chemical. Let me see. I think it can show us the NPK. It's quite high. But like I said, I dilute it, and I set aside from salt buildup in the bottom of the pot. I haven't really found. I think Portulacaria really enjoy lots of fertilizer, so that's my only concern. And here's my 2-gallon container. They sell these tons of them on Amazon. And they're pretty inexpensive, and I find it's just a pump sprayer. I know they have electric ones too, so you can get as fancy as you want, but I've been using this for quite a while, and it's very handy to quickly come in here and spray them. And I just spray until the water comes out of the bottom, and then go a little bit longer to get a little bit of flushing. And that's kind of it in terms of watering with the sprayer. And another hot topic I want to cover, here's a little cutting, is insects, because oh man, it seems like it's feast or famine. Sometimes there's none, sometimes you have a lot. But I found my first line of defense is just alcohol. I have this little sprayer. COVID's over. We have these little things. I just have 70% isopropyl alcohol in here. And if I see anything, I just give it a hit, and that seems to work pretty well. Um, at nipping things in the bud, which is the best way to do it. And I also have one of these. Learned this from Nigel. It's like I think a 40-to-1 soap spray, and I will hit it with this. And I usually just do it right in place here, and then also use the water spritzer I showed you before after maybe 5 minutes. But I don't get too concerned about it. I actually probably go a little weaker than 40-to-1, but I haven't had any problems damaging leaves. Two approaches almost always work, but here is the nuclear option, Bionide, which I don't like using because I don't know what's in there, but it's kind of a systemic poison, and so now, okay, you can't eat your leaves. And I've only used this one time, but if all else fails, you can use something like this. I would use it only indoors or keep the plants like it. It's very poisonous to bees and other um, beneficial insects. So I really do not use this at all unless it's absolutely necessary, and then I take a lot of precautions just because I'd much prefer the natural options to something like this, but it will definitely work. So another thing I do is frequent pruning on a daily basis. You can see this, like it's pretty long. I'm never going to need this. Um, I always say he who hesitates is lost. You may as well come in here and prune these when you see it going out of shape, or you see a branch growing in a direction you absolutely don't need. Um, I find you're better off just pruning now because you're really much more. You're controlling the growth, and again, these are succulents. They don't grow like a maple. Like trees that have certain flushes of growth, and if you prune at the wrong time, you can kill it. These you can prune every other day, and they don't care. I mean, elephants do it to them in the wild. So yeah, I find it's very helpful, and you know, you don't fall behind on your pruning either. So it's a good idea to almost do this on a weekly basis. One thing I daily inspect for, which I'm not going to cover in this video, is like if you see declining health. But I will link a video. I've done several videos on that in the video description where you can see where I definitely noticed something was wrong. And I usually pull the tree out of the pot if I don't see insects and I know it's not a water problem, or at least an underwatering problem, and take action. And I haven't lost one yet. And but I'll link those, and you can see what to do in those cases. But as long as you don't overwater and you're following this daily regimen here, you should not fall into that situation. The only time I've usually fallen into that is when it's kind of an accident, where so something in my daily system sort of broke down. Uh, but if you follow these steps, I think, and pay attention to your trees every day and take action when you find problems, and I think you'll have a lot of success. And with that, I think it's pretty much a wrap. I think a good thought for the day is, pay attention to your trees, listen to them. They'll tell you what they need. So it's all about, learning how to care for them and what works and doesn't work. And that's just a learning process. And hopefully, videos like this will help you speed up that learning process. But we all kind of make mistakes, and don't get disheartened. Just try to figure out what went wrong and improve it. And before you know it, you'll you know never lose a tree, or very rarely, unless it's attacked by something unexpected. Um, but yeah, you know, uh, I hope you've enjoyed this video and get some tips out of it. And I certainly enjoyed making it, and I'll do a bonsai basics video in the future. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.